when you were a kid and you were hanging out with your friends, did your mom ever like get mad at you about some of the people you were hanging around with? I know I had that issue once in time, and I can tell you I've heard this phrase, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I remember hearing that as a kid. Well, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about in this episode of the Range Minded podcast. Uh, there's some things going on in the world, and we need to pay attention to it. But there's also some good things happening in here, in this country, too. So we're going to talk about, yeah, that's right, episode 249, Show Me Your Friends, and I'll Show You Your Future. Enjoy this episode of the Range Minded Podcast. All right, like I just said in the opener. By the way, welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. I am so happy to have you guys here with me. I hope you enjoy what I have in store for you. I'm going to try and keep this episode a little bit shorter. I've actually recently changed how I distribute the podcast, and because of that, I have some different restrictions that I got to keep it under. So this episode and probably the remaining episodes that we do are going to try and keep around 45 minutes, the best that I can. Anyways, that's besides the point. Plus, it should also be a little easier for you guys to digest. And you'll have some homework. I want you to look into the things that I'm going to share with you. I want you to do your homework, so it's not just me. Don't trust me. I need you guys to educate yourselves so you can see the world the way that it is. Last week we talked about how we're being deceived left and right, which I do believe that we are. Today I'm going to show you guys some stuff that's going to be kind of raw. There's no blood or guts or anything. I don't think there is in these videos I'm going to share with you. I doubt it, because some of it's from the BBC News and they're pretty timid. But the first thing I want to show you is our friends in South Africa. I can't remember if we've talked about South Africa in the past. I don't remember if we have. I've recently come across a source. I'll say he's a friend. He's a pretty cool guy. I don't know his real name. He needs his anonymity. Let me just give you some background on this guy. His name is Canine Reaper is what his handle is on Twitter. Follow him on Twitter. You're going to see things that are happening in South Africa that you're not going to see on the news. This is the real deal. This is raw footage that he uploads once in a while. Stories from on the ground. South Africa's a mess right now. It is incredibly dangerous. I recently asked him like what he thought was the catalyst, like where did this all start? And he said it goes all the way back to the Rhodesian state, I guess that's what you want to call it. When, that's the whole apartheid thing and blacks and whites. There was a dichotomy between the two. There was lots of racism in Rhodesia. And as time went on, they ended up, the Rhodesian army and some liberation groups, they got together and they fought against each other. It was a mess. It was a real big mess. I tried to watch a few different documentaries, and there's a lot of two sides of the story that don't really jive. It doesn't, but there is some truth. Anytime you research a story in multiple different areas, anytime the paths cross, that's truth. So the truth is, yeah, there was a lot of racism. There were some good people that were trying to bring it down, but because they didn't want the black votes to matter, like they changed a bunch of stuff around that made it harder for blacks to get to work. They had different bus fares from black and white South Africans. It was a mess. It was a big mess. Anyway, long story short, once they let Rhodesia go, there was no more border wall. And so they had a fence built, but the problem is there's no way to manage the border. So you're getting all these people in from other countries that are like extremely repressed countries. You guys need to understand, the poor in the United States are still like the top 2% of the people worldwide. These people that are flooding South Africa are extremely poor. They're desperate to get out of the places that they live in, but they're still, like, they're not just looking for jobs because there's no jobs in South Africa. They're just trying to escape the mess that they're living in their country. In fact, K9 just showed up some pictures. If, like I say, you guys need to follow him on Twitter. Um, of a Libyan training camp that they found inside. I think it was in Pretoria. Legitimate militant training camp. So not only are they having problems with extremely poor people coming into the country that can't really contribute, there's no properties for sale in South Africa. There's no way for them to get a job. And so now they're just kind of making a mess. Just extreme poverty. It is pretty sad, honestly. But then when you're getting these Libyan training camps in there, why? Like, what's the next place? So it's a scary place to live. It's sad because Johannesburg is beautiful. Durban is beautiful, but it's a mess. It's really, really sad. Anyways, I want you to watch this video from him. I'm probably going to have to turn the sound off because it's going to be some copywritten music. Actually, let me do that before I share this. It's got a little Rammstein playing in the background. Let's see here. Yeah, I gotta hit this button right here. All right, check this out. This is the world I grew up in no longer exists. So the people that are listening, looks like there's some kind of riot on the streets, on the highways. So they like throw rocks on the highways, causing traffic accidents, and then they beat the drivers to death in some cases, but they steal everything that they absolutely can. This video is actually, I think, from 2 years ago. I think he even says this in here. The next scene here, you see thousands of people flooding the streets. It's amazes. Maybe there might not be thousands of people in this big. Actually, I don't know. That goes back quite a ways. But they're rioters. They're protesters. You see that? So it says "survive" here on the top of the screen. It's another image of the highway. You see that, like I say, they cause traffic accidents. They beat the daylights out of these people. Oh, just refreshed. It is pretty sad. So why do I bring this up? Actually, let's go to the next phase here. Oh, I wanted to show you this as well. So why is this not? It should be up here. No, wrong button. This should be up there. I'm having issues with my cold, which is not a cold. It is something much worse. Sorry, I'm trying to get. Oh crap! What did I just do? Oh yeah, this is the right one. All right, check this out. So this is an interesting little. Let me center it up a little bit more for you. So this is a list of the most deadly cities in the world. So I want you to look at number one, Pietermaritzburg. I think that's how you say it. So that's the most dangerous city in the world. That's in South Africa. The next one is Pretoria. That's in South Africa. So there's numbers. So again, if you're listening to this, you really need to watch these videos, watch these podcasts on YouTube. You can get a little bit more out of them, but I'm trying to describe what I'm seeing here on this if you are listening. So Pretoria is the worst city in the world for crime. That's 82.5 out of 100,000. Okay, that's a high crime rate. Then Pretoria is number 2 at 82. And then Caracas, Venezuela, oddly enough, we're going to actually be talking about Caracas here in a minute. Then Johannesburg, another city in South Africa. Port Moresby, which actually surprised me. That's an island out there in the Pacific. Oh, look, Durban is number 6, South Africa. San Pedro, we'll just go to top 10. San Pedro Sula, wasn't that one of some of the islands or something? And then Port Elizabeth, South Africa. Rio, down there in Brazil. And then Memphis is number 10. So we barely break the top 10, which isn't a good thing, actually. But I found this list actually quite interesting. So the American cities on this list, there's the top 60. So Memphis is number 10. Detroit is number 18. Albuquerque, New Mexico is 23. Oakland, California, 29. Milwaukee is number 35 on this list of 60. New Orleans is 37. Philly is 42. Atlanta and Houston are respectively 45 and 46. And then we jump down to 58, which is San Francisco. What do you notice about that list? Of all the U.S. cities on the list, by the way, we barely break the top 10 in the world's most dangerous cities. You don't really hear that very often. They make it sound like we live in a war zone, which we don't. But what do you notice about all those cities on the list? Bueller, they are all Democrat-run cities. So I need you to think about what kind of policies the liberals are pushing, and then what that forces those cities to become. And we just talked about Pretoria, well, all of South Africa, at least a vast amount of South Africa. Those are extreme liberal policies, okay? So K9 Reaper, my connection down there that you need to follow, I'm telling you, you need to follow him on Twitter. You're going to see that it is so bad that the police, they just don't have the manpower, the police or any of the emergency services. So they are depending on citizen support, people that live there and loved growing up there. They actually volunteer for police work, firefighter work, and first responder work. I guess that kind of encompasses everything, right? And what Reaper's doing is he's actually doing patrols at night, like 13-hour days he puts in there on safety patrols. He's had to unlife people. Like, his life is crazy because the policies of the country are screwed up. Okay, I want you to think about that. All right, let's jump to this. This is something that I've been really, really interested in. This has actually kind of made me nervous. Let me make sure you get the most out of this. So I gotta change some of the window sizes. Sorry, it's hard because when I'm bouncing back and forth between my Twitter feed and then this YouTube feed, I have to change the size of the screen that gets fed to you so you actually get it. All right, let's check this out.
I'm going to take you straight to some pictures from Caracas. We're looking at pictures of the riot police who've just taken to the streets in the capital. We've been watching for the last hour, actually, more and more people coming out onto the streets of Caracas. We've seen tyres being burned on the bridges. We've seen a motorcycle rally going through the city centre. You can see there some of the protesters out on that bridgehead there, throwing stones at the riot police. And we were warned earlier in the programme that there would be more unrest over the election results over the weekend. Nicolas Maduro declaring himself the winner of the presidential election. The government-controlled electoral authority claimed Maduro won 51% of the vote, compared with 44% for his rival, the former diplomat Edmundo González Urrutia. But it's been met with some skepticism in Washington.
We have serious concerns that the result announced does not reflect the will
Anthony Blinken,
or the votes of the Venezuelan people. It's critical that every vote be counted fairly and transparently, that election officials immediately share information with the opposition and independent observers without delay, and that the electoral authorities publish the detailed tabulation of votes.
Some Latin American countries, including Colombia, which has friendly ties to Maduro, also expressed skepticism of the results, as did Spain, Italy and other European nations. In the last few hours, protests have been erupting, as you've been seeing in Caracas and in other parts of the country. We got this reaction from the former presidential candidate Alejandro Peña Esclusa, who was jailed by Hugo Chavez and now lives here in Europe in exile.
This will continue until Maduro accepts his defeat. The people in Venezuela is enraged. They're very not only sad, but they're enraged, as I said before, because they've been robbed. The population knows that Maduro was defeated in a huge slime-like process. So,
okay, so to give you a little bit of background. So the elections, if you buried your face in a rock or something, Venezuela just had their elections. Maduro has been president for, I think, 2 terms, and they are 6-year terms. So and he's awful. So under him, and I can't remember not Chavez, who was the was it Hugo Chavez? Maybe. Anyway, whoever the president was before him was assassinated. But in around 12 or 1919, they started taking away citizens' firearms in Venezuela for safety. And then it kind of eased up for a little while. But then in 2012, they said no more. Now, they put this under the guise of public safety, right? Venezuela is, well, you just saw, is number 2 in the most deadliest cities in the world right now. It is absolutely chaotic down there. And because they had lots of shootings, lots of murders involving gun crime, they've taken away all the permits. So now, first it was voluntary. They had like gun buyback programs. It was a voluntary turn in your guns to keep you safe. But eventually what happened, obviously, because we see this in history in every country that does this, is really what they want is a disarmed society. Because if people don't have means to fight back, what are they going to do when the government pushes them around? Interesting note, Venezuela has a military. Their military doesn't go out on campaigns, as far as I know. I'm not a military strategist for Venezuela. I could be wrong. So why would Venezuela need a military? Well, you just saw in this clip, or heard in this clip, that there's an issue with the election. Maduro lost the election, apparently by a landslide. But he is not accepting the plans of the terms of the election. Now, there were some weird things going on. I can't substantiate this, but there was some reporting that Soros is involved. I don't know. It could be. He's weird like that, right? And kind of like the elections that we saw here in 2020, in the middle of the night, they had a surge of votes, and Maduro won. But apparently, the other candidate has all sorts of data showing that we know exactly what happened, and we have the votes to prove that we won. And so it's causing chaos. In reality, the other guy should have won the election, apparently. So Maduro, even my dogs disagree with this, right? So anyway, that's where we come up here. So there's protests in the street, violent protests. I saw some images of, I'm not going to share them, of apparently some of these riot police just driving through these crowds in their vehicles, just crushing people, right? And I think we actually saw this the last go round. But this is what happens, right? When a government takes the citizens' ability to defend themselves, suddenly it's not so much a safety issue.
Nobody likes him anymore. He has created a humanitarian crisis. The third of the population of Venezuela, 8 million Venezuelans, have to flee out of the country. So he's not giving any solutions. And everybody knows he robbed the elections. So people in Venezuela are in the streets, and they're going to continue to be in the streets. And I believe that also more international protests will start to come in. So the combination of international resistance and national resistance will make it impossible for Maduro to stay in power much longer.
Sima, we've been here before, and we've seen things like this in Caracas before, where people come out onto the street to protest an election result, or to protest against a member of the opposition not being allowed to run. And very often it is put down.
Video. Like, we don't need to watch this whole video. So why do I bring up South Africa that's got this chaos going on, and then Venezuela, where we're seeing chaos happen live, right? Like this, there's live feeds of this. There probably is live feeds of South Africa too, honestly. But why is this important? Why do I feel like it's so important for me to bring this up? Again, South Africa, it's you can own firearms, but it's restricted. Now it's a little bit easier if you're going to volunteer to monitor the safety of your community. Caracas, Venezuela, all of Venezuela, not just Caracas, they've taken the ability away from the citizens to defend themselves. for their own safety, right? Caracas is the number 2 city in the world for violence. And then we see chaos erupt, an election that seems to be not what it is. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to lose the election, that the election's already stolen. I don't know. Honestly, I don't have a lot of faith in the process. I haven't for years. But because I want to believe, I vote. I believe if I don't vote, then I have no right to complain. That's the way I feel. You need to be paying attention on what our politicians are saying. They are telling the truth when they say what they're saying. Stop sitting on your hands and saying, well, that can't happen here. Kamala Harris has repeatedly said that she wants to ban assault rifles. Now, maybe you've seen rumbles about her saying, well, her first, thing in office is she's going to enact an executive order. I couldn't find anywhere that I could validate that. Other than it's just flow. I can't believe what the left and the right are saying on the social medias. I have to do the research, right? I'm telling you to do that research too. I couldn't find anything to substantiate her executive order claim. Now, she's said this for years, that she is going to get rid of assault weapons. Now, she's had 4 years almost, right? And hasn't done anything, just like the border. That's, I think, is funny. I watched some of her most recent rally that was actually, I was doing some show prep tonight. It's the one in Atlanta where she says, well, I'm going to reenact the border security that Donald Trump threw away. Basically, I'm just paraphrasing. Well, bitch, you've had 3.5 years to do that, and you haven't done any of it. You're the border czar that said you weren't the border czar, but that's exactly what you were called from the administration's own paperwork, because that does exist. Don't believe, well, I just told you, believe everything they say, right? Excuse me. I'm telling you, this cough has been kicking my butt big time. It kind of makes me nervous. I've coughed so bad where I black out, and it's not cool. So if you're the praying type, I wouldn't mind some prayers my way. It actually is making me kind of scared because the doctors don't really know what's going on with me. Maybe I need to go see a better doctor. I don't know. I have a good doctor. I'm not saying he's a crummy doctor, but maybe I need to see somebody with more specialist. That's beyond the point. Sorry, squirrel moment, right? So our politicians, left and right side, Republican and Democrat, they all lie. They all deceive. We just talked about that last week. But some things they say they really do mean. I believe when Kamala Harris says that she is going to ban AR-15s, assault rifles, we've seen it in the Safer Communities Act. They've tried over and over and over again. They're becoming more emboldened. That is something that I believe she will definitely try to do. Now, there are 100 and something million gun owners. I think it's going to be a little bit tougher sell this go around because people are waking up. I'd like to say I have something to do with that red pill, but I don't. Maybe I do. I don't know. Be very attentive about what's being said and pushed in front of you. Use your intuition. Use that little inner voice. Okay? Honestly, we need to bring prayer back. I'm just as guilty of this, right? We need to be more involved with God, I think, because it's getting really, really bad. Not just in America, but around the world. I'm not saying you have to become a Christian and you don't need to get baptized. I'm not necessarily saying that. You can pray and not be any religion. I do believe God's hand is a lot more involved in our lives than what we think. Anyway, let's see. I wanted to share something else. Let's shift gears a little bit. So, I know I've kind of shared with you some mean, down, and dirty, gross things, right? But I've got some good news. I've got some great news, actually. Let me show you this. Again, see, I got to make it big for you so you can see what's going on. For your little bit of eyes, your eyeballs can read it. Hopefully you can. Do I need to make this a little bigger? All right, scoot it over. All right, check this out. So, this is something I am excited about. Do I think this is going to go anywhere? Probably not. But at least somebody is doing something. This is Senator Mike Lee drafted this bill. It's called the Shush Bill. I love it. Shush! So, Senator Mike Lee introduces the Silencers Helping Us Save Hearing Act to eliminate the unnecessary regulation of suppressors. See? I told you, I'm going to end on some good news. All right, the background. This is just one page. We'll kind of look at the whole bill. It's only 4 pages, which I love. And then there's actually, I think, Cronin or somebody shared something else on this too. So, anyways, let's read this one bill on 1 page thing, okay? Just kind of the fact sheet. Silencers are non-lethal firearm accessory used by hunters, sportsmen, and marksmen throughout the world. Silencers make shooting safer by reducing noise, recoil, and muzzle blast. They do not completely silence firearms. Thank you, Mike Lee, for sharing this. Currently, law-abiding citizens looking to purchase a silencer must petition the ATF through the tedious process, which includes the following. And this is good, because I'm glad he's identifying this. Bring this out in front of more people's eyes. Complete 2 copies of the ATF Form 4, one by the individual and one by the recognized dealer. Okay? Fill out the ATF Form 5330.20 Certification of Compliance. Obtain certification from the local chief law enforcement officer and obtain 2 copies of fingerprints. And then you got to mail both copies of the Form 4, 2 fingerprint cards, and 2 passport size photographs. Actual passport photos. Like you got to get the passport size photographs. And a $200 check to the ATF. Now that, I'm sure a lot of you guys know, but there might be somebody listening that doesn't understand this. That is every time you purchase a suppressor. That's not a one-time thing. That is every suppressor you purchase. Okay? The approval process can take 9 to 12 months. Luckily, it's dropped since this, apparently. So I've heard of people getting them as low as a few hours, getting their approval back, which is fantastic. Once approved, the ATF returns the completed Form 4 with a tax stamp to the recognized dealer, allowing for the financial purchase and transfer to take place. These requirements make purchase of non-lethal firearm accessory onerous and prohibitively costly for most customers, this guy included. The result is a surreptitious gun control, and it's true. And that's exactly what the Gun Control Act was meant to be, a form of gun control. All right, what this bill does. This bill eliminates federal regulations of silencers and as firearms under the National Firearms Act and the Gun Control Act, removing overly burdensome taxes, fees, and registration requirements. The bill removes current restrictions on the right to own, transport, transfer, and use a silencer, including allowing current retired law enforcement officers to carry concealed firearms with silencers. It preempts any state regulation of manufacture, transfer, transport, or possession of silencers, and strikes provisions requiring a mandatory minimum sentence for possessing a silencer in certain instances. The bill also statutorily exempts silencers from the registration by the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Finally, for the purpose of Section 5811 of the Internal Revenue Code, the bill contains a provision. This is fantastic, by the way. Listen to this. The bill contains a provision deeming effective date to be 2 years prior to the date of the enactment, meaning that anyone who purchased a silencer and paid the $200 transfer tax within 2 years of the date of enactment, will be eligible for a refund. If passed, the Shush Act will work in conjunction with the Hearing Protection Act to achieve similar deregulation while additionally removing silencers from the Gun Control Act of 1968. Isn't that beautiful? So they want to get suppressors off the naughty list, which I am 100% for. They get rid of the burdensome tax, which is why I've never bought a suppressor, because by the time you buy a quality can and then add the $200 tax stamp, every time you purchase a suppressor, it is meant to be a burden. It is gun control via taxation. That was the point of the Gun Control Act and the NFA. That was the point, to make it too expensive for people to afford. But one thing I love is, maybe it wasn't clear as I was reading, sorry. Tell you, this infection, because it's an infection, sucks. Anyway, so what this bill from Lee says is, let's say the bill passes the end of the year. Let's say October of this year, which it won't, but it's fun to think about. What this bill says, 2 years from October, back in time, anyone that's filed to get their can purchased and spent that tax of $200 gets a refund. Huh? Come on now. We can get behind that. And then takes that off the naughty list so we don't have to pay the $200 tax fee on top of the cost of suppressors. What would this do to suppressor ownership in the United States? It would obviously skyrocket, but that's good for the consumer in the long run. At first, cans are going to get really, really expensive. I get that, because everybody's going to be buying cans. But what that's going to do is introduce more manufacturers into the market, which is going to bring quality and cost, better quality and more affordable cost onto the market. So in the long term, it's going to be really, really good for us as consumers, in my opinion. All right, let's jump to this other document. Let's see. Here's the Cronin list. Okay, so again, this is kind of a one-page deal. It's the top of the headline: Cronin and Lee introduced the Shush Act to simplify suppressor rules. Washington, U.S. Senators John Cronin of Texas, Mike Lee of Utah introduced the Silencers Helping Us Save Hearing Act, or Shush Act, which would eliminate the excessive regulation of firearm suppressors by simplifying the purchase process for law-abiding citizens and reducing unnecessary bureaucratic obstacles. Law-abiding Americans should not be subject to the necessary federal regulations when purchasing a hearing protection accessory, especially when it relates to their Second Amendment rights. So there's a twofer right there, okay? It's good for our hearing, and it's protected under the Second Amendment. That was from Senator Cronin. This legislation will reduce unnecessary taxes and requirements associated with suppressors and promote responsible gun ownership. Booyah. Suppressors are safety accessories, and their purchase should not be subject to antiquated federal controls. This bill is about making it easier for responsible gun owners to protect their hearing and safely while enjoying their Second Amendment rights. Senate sponsors of the Shush Act are Rick Scott of Florida, Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee. The Shush Act is endorsed by the National Association of Gun Rights, Gun Owners of America, the National Rifle Association, and the National Shooting Sports Foundation. So we got some good political groups behind there too. Suppressors, commonly known as silencers, are non-lethal firearm accessories widely used by hunters, sportsmen, and marksmen. These devices enhance safety by reducing noise, recoil, and muzzle blast. Contrary to the popular belief, they do not completely silence firearms. Currently, the process to legally acquire a firearm suppressor involves burdensome procedure, which we already talked about. We're not going to do that. Takes about 9 to 12 months, which it doesn't anymore. I want to read this again because this is important. The Shush Act aims to eliminate federal regulation of suppressors as firearms under the NFA and the GCA. Remove existing taxes, fees, and registration requirements associated with suppressors. Allow current or retired law enforcement officers to carry concealed firearms with suppressors. I want to carry a suppressor on my concealed gun. Why do the cops get to? That's BS. Preempt state regulations on the manufacture, transfer, transport, or possession of suppressors. Strike provisions requiring mandatory minimum sentences for suppressor possession in certain cases. Exempt suppressors from regulation by the Consumer Product Safety Commission and provide a provision of a refund of the $200 tax of anyone who purchased a suppressor within 2 years of enactment of the bill. If the bill passes, the SHUSH Act works alongside the Hearing Protection Act, further deregulate suppressors and remove them from the Gun Control Act. All right. Honestly, that bill is it's only 4 pages, and most of it is like definitions. The reality is, do you think this bill? Sorry, I just coughed, and so I edited it out so you didn't have to hear it. But in reality, will this bill pass? Not real strong. It could pass. After the election, it could be something drastically different. Now, that being said, when Trump was in office, we had all 3 branches of the government, and we did nothing. So, Republicans are really good about snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory. So, anyways, what do you guys think about that? Are you down with suppressors becoming easier to get? Because I am.
Hell yes.
Or do you think it's going to cause a lot more problems? Now, if we get short-barreled rifles and suppressors off the naughty list, because short-barreled rifles, there is going to be a push on SBRs. And that's going to go to the Supreme Court. And as long as the powers above don't screw up the Supreme Court, and they're trying, look it up. We're not going to talk about that tonight. As long as they don't screw up the Supreme Court, and we keep sanity within the bounds of the court system, short-barreled rifles could be off the list, and suppressors could be off the list. Now, here's the sad reality. Are more crimes going to be committed by stuff like that as it comes off? Probably.
You sure about that?
Because as it sits, very few crimes are done with suppressors. They're not movie quiet. We already know this. In fact, this bill talks about that. But the reality is, yeah, it's probably going to go up. Does it make a gun more dangerous? No, it doesn't. In fact, it actually kind of screws up accuracy long distance wise. Close distance is not going to be that big of a deal. But if an idiot doesn't know how to put on a suppressor, it could just damage the suppressor and maybe the gun. So there's that. Anyway, that's all I really had for you guys. Like I said, I'm going to try and keep these episodes a little bit shorter because of some of my constraints that I have with what I'm using, the software I'm using. But I want to hear your feedback. Am I wrong by pointing out the dangers in South Africa and Venezuela? Could that stuff happen here in the United States? Show me where I'm wrong. Hopefully I am wrong. But in my mind, I could see how the steps that we're going towards. Did you guys see all those people marching for communism in Atlanta or wherever it was? Recently, New York. Actually, I don't remember what state it was. There's a push to enact communism in the United States. And the step the extreme left is taking and the extreme right isn't really pushing back too hard on it. Communism is bad news. And honestly, when they start talking about our democracy is a step towards communism. We're a republic. Okay? We are a republic. We are designed as a representative government, so all the voices can be heard, not just the majority. That is the purpose of our system. That's why it's there. So when they start leaning towards democracy, it diminishes what the purpose of our government is, and it starts to squash out the voices that won't be heard. Okay? We don't want that. We need to keep our republic alive. Like Franklin said, we need a republic. We're giving you a republic if you can keep it. we need to keep it because our children's freedoms depend on it. Fight like hell, right? Like Trump after he got shot. We need to fight, and not like on the street with guns. I mean, we need to hit the pavement. We need to call our representation, and we need to be heard. Okay, we have to. We have to. It wouldn't be fair for me to close out a show without a monologue, so I'm going to monologue for about a couple minutes, and then we're going to close out the show. Okay, the reason why I want you guys to see this, the reason why I care so much about this country, okay, I was thinking about this the other day. I made a little video. I published it on my Rumble account, so there's stuff on Rumble that's not going to be on YouTube, so if you want to jump to Rumble for some little extra content, most of it's, I did a couple of videos the other night. One of them was just a silly video. The other one isn't so much. I am concerned about our republic. So I am a child of an immigrant. My dad and his family, I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but in 1955, they immigrated from war-torn Germany. There was no opportunity. It was a mess. Even 10 years after the war, life was really tough. On top of that, there were still echoes of communism. There was still a lot of sympathy, even though it was eradicated. There was a lot of issues still that existed in Germany. And those repressive issues made it tough for my step-grandfather to provide for his family. It was a sacrifice to move away. My dad left his sister in Germany. The family dynamic was really, it was crazy. So my real grandfather kept my Aunt Karen there in Germany. When my grandparents got divorced, my Oma kept my dad. So it was literally a split family. One child stayed with Opa Hartvik, and the other child came with my Oma. It's a very tough situation. There was a lot of sacrifice. That's what I'm getting to. There was a lot of sacrifice to escape a terrible situation. A lot of sacrifice. People died for our freedom. And people have come from all over the world to come to a place of opportunity. Not of equal outcome, that does not exist, but equal opportunity. True equal opportunity. Where all people can live the American dream. And they can either succeed or they fail and they try again. Equity is not true. There is no guaranteed outcome. But there's a guaranteed opportunity when you come here. And as we see the deterioration of this country, it hurts me to see that. and my family sacrificed to come here. And then I think about all the military men and women throughout the world that have literally given everything. So we have a right to be safe. It's important to me, and I hope it's important to you. I really do believe we'll be held responsible if our children don't have the same opportunities that we did. I guarantee anyone that's my age, middle-aged, you can honestly say that the world that we grew up in as kids is not the same as what our kids are growing up in. Now, I know technology has a lot to do with that, but so does the infringement on our freedoms. And we can't let that happen. We live in the greatest world on earth for a reason. I mean, God has a reason for all of us here. I hope you guys understand that. And it's important that we fight for our freedoms for our kids and our grandkids. And I hope my passion for that comes out. I know that's a little bit more political than normal. Actually, that's not any more political than normal. All right, let's just stop there. Friends, I appreciate your time that you spend with me. I hope you guys really understand that. It means the world to me. And if you're willing or have a desire to help out the show, there's a couple different ways you can do that. I have a Patreon. I think it's through my link tree, but I can somehow link. I got to figure out how to link it on YouTube. I always get flagged. I don't know what I'm doing. But there's also patches if you're into patches, like morale patches back there. I love morale patches. I've got 2 more designs coming out. They should be here within 2 weeks. I'm excited about those. I think you guys will be too. So there's going to be a way to purchase those. I had originally set up to where you just direct message me and we figured out. But I think I'm going to create like an eBay store. It's way easier for me. Last time it was a nightmare. I had some patches disappear. It was a pain. Anyway, I appreciate you guys so much. And I hope my passion for the Second Amendment and all of our constitutional rights comes across and ignites some kind of fire within you, because it is important for all of us. I really, truly believe it. I do not want to see our country go the way of Venezuela or South Africa or any other of those countries that are just a mess, because those are the fruits of the policies that the liberal left really wants to give us. I truly believe that. It's a mess, and we can't do that. It would be awful. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go. Remember who you are and what you stand for. Don't forget, show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Anyways, hey, don't forget you got to take somebody shooting. Thanks for listening. See you guys.